So it takes me around, give or take, 450 hours to write a book from start to publish. And um, that includes me writing an awful first draft, revising it, sending it to my editor, rewriting it while my editor has it, her giving me back the old version and me saying, sorry, I rewrote it while you had it. She loves me, I swear.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Carrington-Russell, an Amazon top 25 best-selling author known for writing kick-butt heroines and delicious men in dark romantic worlds. And I have a very special guest for you today. We are talking to a well-loved author who is known for writing her emotionally charged, messy romances where the villains and anti-heroes win. We are talking to the one and only Greer Rivers. How are you today?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I am so excited to have you on, especially we've had a recent release, so it's been about 2 weeks since it's been out, so I'm sure we've gone through all of the roller coaster emotions. How pretty is that cover?
Yeah.
I love that. That's stunning. Well,
Uh,
congratulations.
Thank you. This is from Jay from Simply Defined Designs on Instagram. She is phenomenal.
I follow
Wow.
her page. She has fantastic covers. I was actually
Yes.
recently.
Yes. Yes. She's amazing. Amazing.
Ah, so good. Well, take me back to the start of the journey then. When was the first time that you wrote a book and you published, and what was that journey like from the start?
So the first time I wrote a book was when I was 7 years old. And it was about a princess who lost her tooth. And I did this thing where every single time she had an S, I did TH, and I thought it was so clever. And I don't know where it is, but I remember like a few years back, I was looking at my children's stuff, my little composition notes that I would fill pages after pages. And I saw that and I was like, oh my gosh. It wasn't bad, actually, for a 7-year-old. Um, but the first time I wrote a book as an adult was after what I like to say my brain broke. In 2015, I have bipolar disorder, type 1, and in 2015, I had a manic episode that was so bad that it like broke my brain. I don't recall uh, around 2 months of my life. And so one thing it did is like the brain is super strange, right? So it basically took away my reading comprehension. So I would read like a paragraph and I knew the words and I knew the sentences, but I didn't know what it said. And so my therapist actually was like, well, can you write? And I said, funny enough, I can. I don't know why. But so she told me to try to write down my trauma or whatever. And it came out in a book that will never see the light of day. And that was my first book. And I was like, okay, you know what? I wanted to be a lawyer, and I also have always wanted to be a writer. Like the plan was to become a lawyer and then write crime fiction after. And so I decided I ended up being able to go to law school. The manic episode actually delayed that for 2 years. I did become an attorney. I am an attorney. And so I was a prosecutor. And then after that, like during COVID, one thing I had promised myself on January 1st, 2020 was I was going to publish something. Didn't know what. But I figured it was going to be romance because I'd been obsessed with it since 2017. And court was not on. So I wrote and I wrote a book about a criminal defense attorney and her ex. He came back from a bad mission, a failed mission with his 5 friends, and they don't know why it failed. And when he came back, he actually gets framed for murder and kidnapping. And the only person he knows to call is his ex. And so she becomes his defense attorney. And that's Escaping Conviction. And that's the first book I published.
Wow. And how did you find like what happened after you hit publish? What was the momentum like? When was the moment for you that you realized there's demand, like there's readers, there's demand for my books. I'm a real author. When was that moment for you?
So I think a lot of authors would say, the I am a real author moment kind of comes and goes. Sometimes I'm like, am I a real author? I've looked at this word for so long, I don't know it's a word anymore. So I think though, um, because I actually quit my job before I published. Because I worked for the government and I couldn't necessarily publish the book that I was publishing. And so I quit before that. And so I was like, wings wide, hope I fly kind of thing. And so it was one of those mantras, I guess, where I was like, I'm going to do this. This is going to happen. So my thought process was never, are there going to be readers? It was, there are going to be readers. And I had to find them because I didn't have a job. So I think though that the first time I realized I was an author was probably after my second book. I I already had one under my belt, and then I published the second book, and I was like, okay, yeah, cool. And then my a TikTok of mine went off, and the book went off, and I was like, wow, there are people talking to me about my book. I guess that means it's legit.
So this is interesting. You went all in from the start. There was a
Mhm.
big risk factor in this, which honestly I always admire. And it's okay for those who don't want to do it, who want to do it gradually, and those who are all in. There's no right way.
Right.
But it certainly puts a lot more pressure on as well. So what were the things that you were doing leading up to that first release to try and make it as successful as it possibly could? What were the things that you were researching, or were there groups that you were involving yourself with, or were you watching other authors that you admired? What was the headspace that you were going into to be like, game on, let's make this work?
So I had joined a couple of like critique and beta reader groups and stuff. And so I connected with some authors in that and we would swap books and stuff. And I think I was really lucky with the group that I had kind of gravitated toward, because everyone in the group was, I'm going to publish something. And so I think that it's really important to surround yourself with like-minded people because if you there were like a couple of people that I had talked to in the beginning that if I had listened to them, it would not have worked out. And so I think it's good to be with people who think that you can. And also not only think that you can, if they're an author as well, that think that they can. Because if everyone in the room has confidence, then everyone in the room can build other people's confidence, and that's what's important.
100%. And the thing is, too, is like there's so many different personalities as well in this industry as well. And it really is just finding your people, the ones who cheer
Mhm.
and you can cheer on equally. And it can get really loud too because everyone has like opinions and it may not necessarily align for you. What works for somebody may not be what works for you, but also you can trial and error those things. And so I always try and advocate on here as well. Don't be so upset if something doesn't necessarily work for you because there is always a different way. You just have to pivot and try. And it's so much more fun when you have those people in your corner as well. So I'm so glad you found them.
Yeah, me too. And then as far as like resources and stuff, I was a huge fan of Writing Excuses, the podcast, and Helping Writers Become Authors by K.M. Weiland. She had a podcast as well, or has a podcast. I read everything that I could get my hands on. Like Save the Cat and Gwen Hayes is Romancing the Beat and just like everything that I could get my hands on. I bought these things, just like the Bible, basically, the Emotions Thesaurus. Um, and then I also put my face everywhere anybody would let me. And so I was on TikTok, I was on Facebook, I was on Instagram. I would not shut up. And that basically, I think, was how I got anyone to follow my journey because not very many people read my first book at first. Um, but if I hadn't built that in the beginning, then I wouldn't have had anybody to show my second book. And so those are pretty much the resources that I used.
That's so good. And also, there's it's kind of a bit scary putting yourself out on social media. And social media is something that we try and discuss every time here because it's different for everyone. But it can be a massive time suck and emotional suck as well for a lot of authors. You've done very well with it. I think it's about 44,000 people you have on Instagram, and I think 58,000 on TikTok. I didn't stalk you at all. But it's hard to continue building that as well, especially when you depend on a lot of people now do with TikTok for sales and such, which is great. But how did you go when you first started building momentum? Was it a bit scary in the sense that more people had accessibility to you now? There were more people to talk to or reply to, or just finding balance in that and not becoming exhausted because of the amount of time you had to spend on it.
Yeah. So there are, I don't know, a lot of the things that I know is because someone else told me. And so one thing that someone said that like really clicked for me is like you kind of have to decide whether you're going to be the goddess or the friend. If you're doing something in business like that requires social media, the goddess is someone who is above, like you don't ever talk to her. She doesn't really share much, but you love her content. And so it's mostly about like the power of the goddess and like that's her social media presence. They're like it's a lot of like some of the faceless authors who do really well, they're kind of the goddess mode because nobody really knows anything about them. So uh they kind of create home in themselves, which is really important too. But the problem is sometimes those readers are not as nice as the people that a face forward author who is like a friend or a relator would more likely get. But the relator, they get, or the friend, they get the followers who are friends and who want to talk to them and want to share with them. And it's the thing is if the friend disappears, so did the sales. And at the same time, the friend sometimes gets burned out. And that has definitely happened to me. I get, uh, I go into cycles basically whenever I publish. It's like whenever I'm the last weeks of writing and the first weeks of editing, I just go away. And that is something that I wish I didn't have to do every single release. There's been 11 now. Every single release, I wish that I was a different person in this aspect. But maybe this will be the 12th time's the charm. But I it's hard. I think that first viral video that I had on TikTok wasn't after my second book. It was I think it might have been before my first book. And I was just like chatting about why choose, which is so funny because a good majority of my followers in the beginning were why choose readers. And then I point out something that wasn't why choose, and they're like, who are you? I don't know. Um, but those comments were mean. And then whenever people started putting videos on Instagram, oh, I almost didn't do it because it was like every single time I tried to do it, people were just brutal. Um, and so the first thing that I did when I could was like my husband actually would screen my comments and he would like block and delete for me. And then I would go and talk to people. But it is exhausting. It is overwhelming. I am an introvert to my core. There's no question about it. If I could be in my hermit hobbit hole for the rest of my life writing a book, that's what I would do. So you have to protect your mental health first. And so now I restrict my commenting time to like 15 minutes a day on Instagram. And that's comments and DMs. And I check DMs 2 times a day because you get the stories, you can get pretty much everyone in a 24-hour cycle. And then on TikTok, I answer right after I post, and then I scroll some. And Facebook, I'm still trying to figure it out. Facebook stresses me out. So I don't know about that one.
I absolutely love, though, that you have found what works for you with restrictions as well. It is always a difficult reality, I guess, when you start getting those mean comments. And everyone talks about wanting to go viral. Of course, we have seen the times where it makes or breaks a career, especially for authors. But there is that moment, I think, for a lot of authors when that reality kicks in because people can be brutal, as you said, brutal. It can be mean. I've had experiences with this in different regards as well. And it's always, I find, the really first surge of hateful comments that really make you question whether this is something that you want. Because now we do live in a time, like I started publishing in 2014, so we're over a decade now. The time has changed a lot. And so now we are more accessible to readers, and some good and bad. And I actually think, unfortunately, it is something that everyone has to brace themselves for. So I'm sad to hear that you experienced that. Not surprised, but very sad. So, what would be the advice that you have for authors to, if they are wanting to go big on social media or really put a lot of time into it to build those platforms? Perhaps words of advice just to help them better manage those expectations, I guess.
I definitely would say try to be consistent as far as just like social media goes. But the mental health aspect of it, because I think that's kind of what the crux of everything is with that, is just like guarding your heart. If you cannot answer a comment, don't answer a comment. But one thing that has helped me is I think I don't want my readers to see this because my readers love this. My readers love this book. My readers like me. My readers love talking to each other in my comment sections. I have to protect my readers. And that all that is true, but at the same time, like putting it as like a protect because it's hard for me to protect myself. And I feel like a lot of people are like that. Like you'll let someone walk all over you, but I ain't gonna let you walk over her. So that's kind of a mindset that helps me is like I need to protect them. I don't want them to see these things. Because I don't want anyone to lose the joy in what they love. And those types of comments they hurt everybody. And then another thing that this kind of was like, it like broke my brain a little bit. I was listening to the radio one time and this hateful person was talking. And they said, I'm a troll. And I love it. And I was like, what? People love being a troll. And they're like, yeah, they were like, they love being a troll. They live for being a troll. They love to hate. And that just like blew my mind that there were actual people out that in like that in the whole wide world. And so once I realized that people enjoy doing this, yeah, something might be broken in them, but some people enjoy it. And um, that means that they're trying their hardest to get at you. Don't let them because like they're being so mean on purpose. They're bullies. And you don't know them if you're not going to take their opinion, like their criticism and their opinion about your book, like don't listen to them calling you awful things. Um, but at the same time, if you just can't do it, don't do it. Like try something else, pivot, stay in the lane that feels comfortable to you and that can guard your heart and your brain.
Then let's talk about all of it because social media is a huge part. So is writing. What does your 9 till 5 look like? You know, are you doing 2 hours of admin every morning and then we're doing like I feel like we all want an ideal regimented 9 till 5 situation. A lot of us don't have that. So I am very curious as to what yours looks like.
Well, there's that like old saying, it's like I quit my 9 to 5 so I could go 24/7.
Yes.
And then that's like the life I think a lot of us lead. And it's hard not to lead that life. I personally enjoy it. I enjoy working from 9 to 6 p.m., hanging out with my husband or my friends, and then 8:30 to 11. I like that. Not everybody's like that. And but I love it. So what I do is like I work out in the morning and then when I come back, I'll take my dog out and then I'll sit with her outside and just answer DMs and stuff. And then I go to writing. But if my brain has had any kind of non-focused moment, I don't pick up my phone. Because if I pick up my phone, I'm going to I know that my brain is going to just stick in there and I can't do that. Or if I'm like a little bit sad, I can't do it because I'm like, oh, but let's look at the news and then I'm gone. Um, so it is writing basically until like 4 or 6. And then from 8:30 to 11, I do marketing or admin.
Okay.
And then if I don't do it till 6, I'll do it till 4, and then 4 to 6 will be admin.
What then does your writing process look like? Are you a plotter or a pantser? Are we doing vision boards? Are we lighting candles every time we write? Like, what is the process for you?
Well, I it changes every book. There have been several books that I hand wrote. And there are books like the book right now that I'm doing is a dictation. Like I'm dictating the outline at least. The other day or yesterday I was trying to brainstorm with my hands and then it didn't work out and I was brainstorming typing and I was like, wow, everything feels so constricted up here and I can't put it down fast enough. And so last night my husband and I were talking about my plot. I just accidentally started blathering on about it. He said, write this down. I said, no, I can't do it, but I'll dictate it. And I started and then 45 minutes later I had some pretty good scenes and I was like, all right, I guess that's what this book's going to do this time.
Interesting. So I like that you actually change your process each time depending on the book. That's very interesting. How are you finding dictation? Because for me personally, I thought I could never articulate myself in that way. Again, I haven't tried, so who knows? But how are you finding it?
So it does take some getting used to. I am not very good at taming my accent whenever I'm just going like out of my brain and stuff. Like I haven't had to do that in a long time. When I had my court accent, which was like this, and I didn't have like a southern accent at all. But I still like I can't do that whenever I'm just like going up in my brain. But once I get used to it a little bit with like period, comma, like all this stuff, it gets kind of easier. You do have to just figure it out, guys, I guess. And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. It hasn't worked for me since my fourth book. Um, I wrote 60% of my fourth book with dictation. And so I haven't done it since then. And here we are. It's my 12th.
So how long does it usually, what are your word counts usually, and how long does it roughly take you to write a book?
Um, it, so I actually count hours of work for myself. And so it takes me around, give or take, 450 hours to write a book from start to publish. And um, that includes me writing an awful first draft, revising it, sending it to my editor, rewriting it while my editor has it, her giving me back the old version and me saying, sorry, I rewrote it while you had it. She loves me, I swear. And then revising that and giving it back to her, copy editing that, sending it to my proofreader, editing that, sending it to my ARC readers, realizing there are still some things that I didn't love and editing that. And then eventually Amazon's like, stop it, you, and I publish it.
I love that though. I love that you actually count the hours that you do because I think it's not a common way perhaps that people would like everyone focuses on the word count, but when you outright say it takes me about 450 hours per book, isn't that
Mhm.
mind-blowing? Isn't that exceptional? Like for one product, but we're so passionate and creative to make sure that it can be the best version of itself. Have there been books perhaps that just they were so easy for you that you don't think it even took half that amount of time because it was just straight onto the page as it was meant to be, or has this been sort of a similar process each round?
So the problem is I do tend to completely change everything. Because you asked if I was a plotter or a pantser. I am a full-on plantser where I plot the heck out of it, and then around 30% in, I decide that I don't like any of it. and then I trash it, and then I start over, and then I start over again. So, I guess you could say my first draft is like I was talking to, I have a writing coach sometimes, and she was telling me that that's called a zero draft. So my zero draft is usually about 75% of my final product. And I write typically around 110,000 words for each book. Um, and so it grows. It grows 25% in the editing process.
I actually want to talk about this. So you just mentioned a writing coach. Now that you've been doing this for 4 or 5 years, what are some of the things or people that you've implemented to help you support your role in being the creative muse to this? So, a writing coach, how did you find that experience? Would you recommend it to those who are in a position where they might be able to afford it at the moment? And are there other resources or people that you would suggest putting in place to help support the dream?
Yes. I think the first thing I would say is don't go out before you've gone up. Um, like try and elevate yourself with what you've got with you before you start spending money and adding people to your business. Because if you just do this, then you're kind of flat. But if you like do it in such a way that you keep growing up, then you're going to be fine. But I love my writing coach. I don't need her all the time, but whenever I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a traditionally published book to edit and I have a real book to edit. I know they're both real, but in my head, the one that I'm publishing is like happening immediately. So, um, but she's very calm. I met her through Becca Syme and her Patreon. She has writing coaches available. If that is something, if you don't have a good group to talk to that you feel comfortable talking to, and to be very frank, if you don't have anybody that is looking to elevate the way you are, it is good, I think, to talk to somebody that, talks to people for a living. I always think it's great to talk to people like that. I have a therapist. I've had one since 2009. Um, but as far as like other people, and these are people that I gained over the course of the last, like as you said, 5 years. Because it was me. It was a one woman pony. I was just all by myself for about a year. And then my husband was able to quit his job, and so he's been amazing. We're business partners, and I could not do this without him. I have three PAs. One helps me with Pinterest, one helps me with Facebook. Not good at Facebook. And then the other one helps me with Instagram. And I've just started uh working with companies that help with TikTok to post on different accounts. And I also have a PR firm that I use, and that's Valentine PR. They're amazing. Um, and an agent. I also didn't get an agent until about a year and some change in. Um, but I think if you can't get an agent, you should get a subscription to Publisher Marketplace because it is $25 a month, at least for a month. Go look at it because I think that it's really interesting or really important for indie authors to realize what's going on behind the curtain. And before you look for an agent, before you sign any contract at all, go on there, just be nosy for a little bit and see like what authors you know of and you think are like peers at your level, see what they're doing before you sign any contracts.
I actually really want to talk about this. So, creating opportunities for ourselves, especially when we start off as indie authors, because it's a very intense industry. When you acquired your agent, were you going through the process of pitching? Were you approached? And then what advice do you have for those who are looking at being traditionally published as well, just to sort of help them manage their expectations on the step-by-step process? Because I think a lot of people don't realize it also is a lot of time involved as well. It's not as immediate as independently publishing.
So my first agent, I got her. I like reached out to her through word of mouth and I didn't know what I was doing. So I just was like, DM, hey girl. I hey girled my first agent and somehow it worked. Well, she had read my books, thankfully. So I guess she was aware of me. And then my second agent, she reached out to me and she has helped me get a deal with a traditionally published deal with a publisher, obviously. It takes a long time, like especially compared to indie, like the indie world, right? I just said it took me 450 hours, but like the 451st hour, the book is getting published. So, that's not how it works for traditional publishing. And I do think that um, you can, whatever expectations you can manage, that should be one of them, that your time is now not just your own. And I also think don't be afraid to ask questions of people around you that you know of with that publisher or your agent. And don't ever be afraid to ask questions. Ask questions. We need to talk to each other more. But yeah, I think the thing that you probably should remember most as an indie author is that your time is no longer just your own. Um, and if you have a question, ask them because I mean, it's a collaborative effort. So, and also, if nothing else fails, you know what you're doing. Go publish it yourself.
Love that. One thing that I absolutely loved of yours was your website. It's beautiful. It's honestly stunning for those who like definitely go check it out when you go on the front page. It's a video, I think it's of a ballerina, and it's very aesthetically pleasing. But what really grabbed my attention was your shop. It is stunning. And so I want to talk a little bit about that as well, because I think a lot of people hesitate on getting a store because they don't sort of know what the ins and the outs are, or they're like, I need to get all these extra bits and pieces for the books, which eventually you can do. But I always say just start up now so you have it there. So, do you have advice for those who are wanting to first open their store, and then when it really gets into the nitty-gritty of special editions and hardbacks and the more expensive stuff, to be fair?
Yes. So I will say that website, it was done by AA Creative. They're an amazing company. That is something that we budgeted. It needed to be budgeted. And there are plenty of other people. If you look on Amazon or think of your favorite author, scroll to the bottom. It usually says who made it, and then reach out to those people. Or if you're amazing at websites, do it. Or if you're not amazing at websites, do it. Um, but I think for an actual shop, it is kind of like what you said, right? Just open it. And, if you have to say sold out, that looks pretty good, actually. That looks like people wanted your product. And it's better to say, in my opinion, to say sold out than to say I can't sell. And so if you don't have the product, that's okay. Order it as you need it. Don't like think, oh my gosh, I don't have stickers. I don't have pins. I don't have magnets. I don't have blah, 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 blah. These people aren't out here looking for just that. These people who are wanting a copy of your book are wanting your signature on it. And that's what they want. They're like, oh yeah, this other stuff is great. But they're going to be like, oh my gosh, look, I have the signed book. They're not going to say, hey friend, look at this pen I got with my signed book. Look at my signed book. So, I mean, they're there for you. They're there for your story. Always focus on that first.
What advice do you have when it comes to doing the special editions and the hardbacks? Because I think a lot of people are so like we all love shiny things. Let's be real. Let's put that out there right.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of work that goes into that, and it's also quite expensive. So, what are some of the things that you would recommend or advise when it comes to finding the right, producers or resources or whatever it may be that you need those things? Where would you recommend authors to start?
So one thing, I think it was Misty Walker. She has a great online store. At least she's got a great TikTok store. I'll be very honest, I don't know about her online store, but she's great at TikTok shop. Great at it. One of the things that I saw her say a long, long time ago is to sign up for every newsletter. And especially the people that you use for your merchandise and stuff, because they're going to send you like 40% off weekend. You're like, all right, let's go. And then you bulk up and then you don't talk to them again until they're 40% off weekend. So first and foremost, I would say sign up for newsletters, get you a good cache of that so you can get you some percentages off. And then I would say, as far as like who to use, ask the people around you. If you see a book that's beautiful, or if you see a book box that's beautiful, don't be afraid to like ask the author. Be nice and try and be their friend if they talk back to you. Don't just ghost. But talk to them and ask them, and maybe offer to like, you know what, if you ask questions, this always works. If you ask questions and then you offer to feature their stuff, that is a great way to say thank you, in my opinion. But I also used the Influence agency for mine because they helped me with my Kickstarter, and they were able to use all of their connections to help join like and make this beautiful book. Um, and so I would find people who know what they're doing and then annoy them and then offer to feature them in your stuff.
Let's talk about Kickstarter actually. Kickstarter
Okay.
is perhaps overwhelming initially, actually. So what is advice that you would offer authors who are looking into it? Because it can be a great way if you don't have the budget at the time to start special editions or whatever it may be.
Yes, it can be. Part of the problem with the way that we do things, as far as like, oh, I'm just gonna do a Kickstarter for the special edition. Part of the problem is you still need to have the artwork to show off. You still need to have the graphics to show off. It really helps to have the book in your hand when you're talking about it. And all of those already cost money. And so you're thinking like, oh, I really need to do this Kickstarter to create the book. And that was what we did, because we had the ability to make it and do all that stuff. We did not have the ability to order it all. And we also didn't know how many people would want it. And so that's why my husband and I, we chose Kickstarter. And it is overwhelming. I do think that it is a format that is getting more popular in the book sphere. I think they themselves are wanting to be more popular in the book sphere. Um, but if you're wanting to get into it, I would say be like dot your I's, cross your T's, then cross your I's and dot your T's. Just making sure that everything is perfect before. But that's also coming from me. I don't really like to fly by the seat of my pants, but I do it all the time. And so I would suggest, though, making sure that you have everything like planned out. And I would also suggest, because Kickstarter does take a lot of time. We used a company and it still took a lot of my time. Part of that was because I wrote bonus stories and stuff like that for my Kickstarter. But that's another thing. You have to provide value, and value takes a lot of your time and money as well. And so just doing it for that, if you're if for money for to create it, just know that you have to do these other things first.
Yeah.
There's also a Facebook called Kickstarter for Authors. I would join that. There's also Reddits with Kickstarter stuff. Read the heck out of everything you can. That's always going to be my advice.
I think too, one thing that has to be mentioned is checking your budget as well,
Yeah.
because I think often we can undervalue actually, as you said before, what we're providing with all those extra bonuses and those things. But what can happen is perhaps people undervalue that and then not take into account the postage and the handling and things like that, which is accounted to into the price that they're clicking and paying for. So just make sure you run over your budget to make sure you are making a profit, because I've seen many authors actually lose money sometimes when they do their first one. And these are all learning lessons, which is why we're here to say, hey, maybe try and avoid this, because, we've been close to doing it. So That is one thing I would double check as well. And as you recommended, there's those amazing groups that you can be a part of and ask the question, hey guys, how do you budget? Again, you will get a lot of different opinions and noises, but it gives you a rough idea as well from people who have gone through the experience and process too.
I will say also, not just your budget of what you can spend, but the budget of what you might lose. For me with Kickstarter, it did take me like a month and a half, 2 months, which is the time at which I could have written a book. So I had to like figure out, before whether that loss of income for like a good while would be more than what I would get from Kickstarter if Kickstarter could cover that. Fortunately, it covered that, but that's not always the case, and like when you look back at what you do get for Kickstarter, you kind of have to put that into perspective too. Like, oh, well, if written a book, maybe I would have made that anyway, or something like that. So it's your forward budget and your backward budget, kind of.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. I would love to know, after so far 5-year career, which you've done incredible, what has been the greatest challenge so far, and what has been the greatest accomplishment so far in your career?
I would probably say like staying consistent on social media is probably, I guess, my greatest business challenge. Um, and then personally, I always try to uh hang out with my friends and my family. And so sometimes it's a challenge to make sure I remember that like this is just a job. It's a great job. It's a powerful job. It can change lives, but it is just a job as well. There are lives around you to pay attention to as well. So that's probably the challenge to kind of take my business hat off, especially since I work at home. And then my greatest accomplishment is from the very beginning. I My little motto to myself was I wanted to give readers a safe space to feel too much because that is a place that books have always given me. Like we might not be able to cry in court when the judge yelled at you, but I could cry tonight because it's a sad book. That kind of thing. And so my greatest accomplishment, I would say, is like the books that I write are, I bleed for them with my heart. But I get messages from people that change my life and make me feel like the the emotional blood I spilt and the time that I took was worth it because they reach out and they say I've never seen myself like this. I've never seen a character that had bipolar disorder the way I do and stuff like that. And that is the greatest accomplishment.
I love that. Well, congratulations. You've executed it really well.
Thank you.
There's two things I want to go off on this. The first one is I do want to touch a little bit on balance. So the greatest challenge being working and then balancing friends and family because there are a lot of sacrifices a lot of us usually make in this because we are trying to get ahead. Like we can see the dream, we can taste it, and we just want to have our books in front of as many people as possible because we have a story to share and it's what drives us, it's what fuels us. But sometimes it can be unbalanced, and some people experience burnout through that process. But then also, there is sometimes a sacrifice of personal one on one time with family and friends and such. And so I want to know what is the advice of how some of the conversations that you had to have with yourself to ensure that you found some type of time or some type of space where you're like, no, this needs to be a priority.
So that is something that I try and get better at every single day. I am not, I used to not be great at boundaries. I am now, my family calls me the boundary queen. But I think it's really important, I say the whole like 9 to 6, 8:30 to 11, but at 6 o'clock I do not work. I am with my husband, I'm with my friends, I'm with my family, or if I have something on my calendar, I do not work. And those are honestly the bare minimum. But it is so important to me to kind of keep that. And so I will say to people, "Hey, I'm not working right now. I will talk to you about this tomorrow morning at 9 or something like that." And so I think that balance is really important. I have little rules for myself because I'm also an introvert. And so I'll say, it's Tuesday. My friend invited me to go out on Thursday. I have not seen anyone outside my house yet. And even though I want to say no because I am an introvert, I will say yes. I have to say yes to at least one person who asks me to do things. And so I try and say yes at least once a week. And usually, if it's my family or my friends, or family and friends, I'll do both. If it's my husband, I always say yes. And so, because he's my family. Um, but yeah, so have rules for yourself. Figure out what works for you. Those work for me. I do think that time is an easy thing to feel like you can put a boundary on. Um, Especially in the day and age of being able to put on a uh focus app or something like that. And so I would say like figure out the boundaries that feel good to you to be able to balance your life, because it is, you don't get these people back that are around you. You don't get the time that you have to take care of yourself back. And the career, the fact that you started your career and that you were crazy enough to write a book, you were insane enough to put yourself out there and like have your face on social media for everyone to say something about. There's something a little bit nutty about all of us because like normal people don't do that. And so it's important to realize that you did that once. You can do it again. And hanging out with your family on Tuesday night's not going to make it so you can't do it.
That's such good advice. Before I let you go, I want to talk about writing retellings. Um,
Mhm.
Very interesting. I've never done it myself, always up for a challenge, but I am curious as to what rules or what reader expectations or what advice you have for writers who are wanting to delve down this path.
So what I would say, because everybody does a retelling, it seems like I mean I was going into retellings when there were plenty of retellings going on, and they're still going on. People love the story that they know, especially people who love happy endings. Um, and so I think to make yours different, it's good to research. It's good to find something that maybe not everyone is doing for that. So research original stories, research the history behind the city that it's made in, research the original ballerinas who performed in the first Swan Lake, research everything, and maybe there's a nugget that you can take that can make yours different. And always try and figure out how to make yours yours. Um, at the same time, no book is the same. Like your story is going to be different from someone else's. But like with Phantom, when I read the original source material, I was like, this girl's bipolar. She'd be perfect for this. And so that's how I was able to put in what I know, is because I read the original, and the original helped me figure out, my spin on things. And that's what I would offer. I would say research, find one that you love, go into the vault of public domain and see what is out there that you really just enjoy and really love. Do things that are natural to you. And yeah, I guess that's kind of like my advice for everything. Do things that are natural to you and find things that you love and
I,
pivot.
I love that. That's good advice because I think a lot of, especially when people start off on this journey, they idolize a particular author or a particular person. And I feel like it really is not until you come into yourself and you're courageous enough to showcase that and your authenticity, whether it be on social media or through your books. I honestly feel like that's when everything starts to pick up. So I think that's fantastic advice. Not because I just agree with it, but I have had so much fun having you on today, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. So let us know what is coming out for you, what do we need to be on the lookout for, and most importantly, what social medias can we find you on?
So the first book, I mean, the next book that I'm writing right now that I'm dictating is Dishearten. And it's the second book in my Afraid Satin series, and it's coming out at the end of January. Um, and it is an interconnected standalone that is uh, weaved in from Unveil, which just published October 7th. I don't know what day I did it. October 2nd. Oh my
I
God.
know the answer to this. You're already on
Please,
to the next book. You're going.
someone help me. Someone help me. I don't know when I did this. um, yes, October 2nd. How could I forget? Because the next day was October 3rd. But yes, October 2nd was on Veil, and then the next book is Disheartened, and then I'm publishing two more books before September 2026. And those are all going to be in the same series. And the best place that you can find me is probably I try very hard to answer every Instagram DM. I'm pretty good at it, and I try very hard to do it. Like I said, I try and fit everything in 30 minutes, but if it doesn't fit in 30 minutes, I'm sorry. But I try to do Instagram. So Instagram is probably the best. I have a broadcast channel on there now, so I can be like, "Brr, I'm going on a live, come say hi." And I also have a Facebook group called the Mad Tatters Tea Room. Not very good at Facebook though. So the best place other than that is also TikTok. I am author Greer Rivers everywhere. Um, but Instagram, TikTok, and then Facebook.
Amazing. And of course, everyone, don't forget that Greer has an amazing website as well. So
Yes.
definitely sign up to the newsletter, check out the shop. It's stunning. And yeah, who knows? Watch this space. We might see what you're getting up to in the next year or so and get you back on.
Yeah, I would love that. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No problem. And until next time, bye, guys.
Bye.